The skies over Vietnam were packed with everything, from prop-driven workhorses to cutting-edge jets. Bombers, fighters, gunships, cargo haulers, helicopters. This war had it all. Some of these machines changed warfare forever. Others were obsolete the day they arrived. This is every aircraft used in the Vietnam War, starting with American fighters and attack aircraft. F-4 Phantom II. This twin-engine beast became the defining fighter of the war. It was fast, heavily armed, and could carry more bombs than a World War II bomber. The problem is, it was designed without a gun, relying entirely on missiles that failed constantly in the heat and humidity. Crews loved its raw power but cursed its lack of a cannon until the gun pod was added. It worked, but pilots wanted it built in from the start. F-100 Super Sabre. The first supersonic fighter in U.S. service, it flew thousands of close air support missions, dropping napalm and high explosives on enemy positions. Its speed was a huge advantage, but the airframe was old and maintenance heavy. Pilots called it the Hun, and it did the job even when it struggled in the jungle heat. F-105 Thunder Chief. Known as the Thud, this massive single-seat fighter bomber was built to deliver nukes. Instead, it flew into the most heavily defended airspace in history, over North Vietnam. It could carry an enormous bomb load and had internal weapons bays, but it was a big target. The loss rate was brutal. Crews respected its toughness, but knew every mission was a roll of the dice. F-8 Crusader, the last of the gunfighters. This Navy jet had a built-in 20mm cannon and an unusual variable incidence wing that tilted for carrier landings. It was fast and maneuverable, excelling in dogfights against North Vietnamese MiGs. Pilots loved it for its raw fighter capability. It was outclassed by newer jets, but still deadly in the right hands. A-1 Sky Raider, a propeller-driven attack aircraft from the Korean War era. Slow, tough, and able to carry a staggering weapons load, it could loiter over the battlefield for hours, something jets couldn't do. The SPAD, as crews called it, was perfect for close air support and search and rescue missions. It absorbed damage that would destroy a jet and kept flying. Obsolete by speed standards, but irreplaceable for the mission. A-4 Skyhawk, a small, nimble Navy attack jet. It was cheap to build and easy to maintain. The scooter carried a respectable bomb load and could operate from carriers with ease. Its size made it hard to hit, and it was loved by pilots for its handling. The downside was limited range and payload compared to bigger jets. It worked because it was reliable and available in large numbers. A-6 Intruder, an all-weather carrier-based attack jet with advanced navigation and bombing systems. It could hit targets at night or in terrible weather when nothing else could fly. The side-by-side cockpit gave the pilot and bombardier navigator room to work. It was slow and unmaneuverable compared to fighters, making it vulnerable to MiGs. But it was the only aircraft that could deliver precision strikes in conditions that grounded everything else. A-7 Corsair II, a subsonic attack jet introduced late in the war. It was designed for accuracy and long loiter time rather than speed. Pilots appreciated its stability and weapons delivery precision. The jet was tough and could absorb battle damage. The lack of speed made it less survivable in high-threat environments, but for controlled airspace, it was ideal. A-37 Dragonfly, a light attack jet converted from a trainer, small, nimble, and cheap to operate. It was perfect for close air support missions in South Vietnam, where heavy jets were overkill. The twin engines provided redundancy, and it could operate from rough airstrips. Limited payload and range kept it in secondary roles, but it excelled at what it was designed to do. Moving on to bombers and strategic aircraft. B-52 Stratofortress, the ultimate heavy bomber, designed to drop nuclear weapons on the Soviet Union. It instead carpet-bombed Vietnam. A single B-52 could carry 108 500-pound bombs. Arc-light missions devastated entire grid squares, breaking enemy concentrations and morale. The massive 8-engine jet could fly from bases in Guam or Thailand and obliterate targets from high altitude. The problem is, it was vulnerable to surface-to-air missiles, and many were lost over North Vietnam during Linebacker II. It was a blunt instrument, terrifyingly effective when used correctly. Moving on to helicopters. UH-1 Iroquois, the Huey, the sound of the Vietnam War. This utility helicopter moved troops, evacuated wounded, and provided fire support. It was nimble, reliable, and could land almost anywhere. The problem is, it was lightly armored and vulnerable to ground fire. Thousands were shot down. But it was the backbone of air mobility, and its versatility made it irreplaceable. UH-1 Cobra, the first dedicated attack helicopter. It was fast, heavily armed, and designed to escort Hueys and provide close air support. The narrow profile made it harder to hit, and the firepower was devastating. Crews loved it for its agility and punch. The downside was limited armor and vulnerability to heavy ground fire. It changed helicopter warfare. MiG-17, a subsonic jet fighter from the 1950s. It was nimble, simple, and effective in dogfights. North Vietnamese pilots used hit-and-run tactics, diving out of the sun and escaping before American jets could react. It couldn't match the speed or technology of the Phantom, but in close-range knife fights, it was deadly. Maintenance was relatively simple, and Soviet support kept them flying. It was outclassed, but dangerous. MiG-19, a supersonic fighter with heavy armament. It was faster than the MiG-17 but less maneuverable. North Vietnamese pilots used it sparingly, relying on speed to escape rather than dogfighting. Limited numbers and high maintenance requirements kept it in secondary roles. It was a threat, but not a game-changer. The best fighter North Vietnam had, supersonic, armed with missiles and a cannon, and flown by well-trained pilots. It was fast enough to intercept American strike packages and agile in a dogfight. The problem is, it had limited range and endurance, forcing pilots to land quickly after engaging. Soviet tactics emphasized ambush and escape. It was dangerous, and American pilots respected it. An-2 Colt, a Soviet biplane used for supply drops and psychological operations. Slow, low-flying, and nearly invisible to radar. It could land on rough strips and operate at night. The wood and fabric construction made it hard to detect, and it was used to infiltrate supplies into South Vietnam. It was obsolete, but the mission fit its capabilities. And finally, South Vietnamese aircraft. A-1 Skyraider. The South Vietnamese Air Force flew the same propeller-driven attack aircraft as the Americans. It was tough, reliable, and perfect for close air support. Maintenance was simpler than jets, and it could operate from rough airstrips. South Vietnamese pilots flew it extensively, and it remained in service long after American forces withdrew. F-5 Freedom Fighter, a lightweight, cheap jet fighter designed for export. It was nimble, easy to maintain, and effective in air-to-air combat. South Vietnamese pilots flew it for air defense and ground attack. The problem is, it lacked the range and payload of heavier jets, but it was reliable and available, making it the backbone of the South Vietnamese Air Force.